Hi, my name is Andy McCartan. I'm a graphic designer, and this is a short film where I'm just going to tell you a little bit about my life and experiences as being a designer. And the question is, well, why design? Um, why design indeed? Well, design for me has been a significant part of my life for 40 years. And it has enabled me to leave Liverpool, which is my home city. I was born there in the 60s, and to go to Leicester, where I got a degree. I got an honours degree in graphic design, and then I came all the way down to London and settled in London, doing graphic design practice and lecturing. So I've lived and worked in London now for the best part of 38 years. When I started out in design, all I knew was that I could draw and paint and play guitar. Not at the same time, of course. But I did have a band back in Liverpool. Original Sin and Osmium were the names. Dentist metal known to man. But I thought I was better at art than my guitar skills. So I first went to do a foundation diploma course in art and design at the Liverpool Polytechnic, as it was then. And there I had an interview to get in, which was with a guy called Sam Walsh and Maurice Cockerell, who I didn't know from Adam. Maurice Cockerell later became the keeper of the Royal Academy, and I actually interviewed him back in 2008 for an MA thesis I was writing at the time. And Sam Walsh, he was an interesting character. I was asked if I had any questions. At one point in the interview for the foundation, I thought I should ask something. So, can you tell me anything about the course? Was my expansive question. And Sam Walsh drew heavily on his cigarette. Nope. And that was that. Fortunately, they let me in. And so Sam was my first tutor on the course, but he was always about half drunk. He used to sip brandy in the studio and light his cigarettes, his roll-up cigarettes. So he was he was very deft at doing that. I was amazed though he didn't set himself on fire with the amount of fumes from his brandy. But Sam was quite famous for having done portraits of the Beatles. But by the end of the first time, I decided to swap to graphics with another tutor called John Baum, who was a Welsh painter, designer, and smoked a pipe. But he seemed a little bit more together, shall we say, in terms of himself and how he got students working. There was only about 15 of us in each of the pathways within this in the whole foundation course. So it was very intimate, so to speak, in terms of being able to develop dialogues with tutors and have exchanges and discussions that made sense. So then I enjoyed my foundation, and it sort of got me thinking. I then applied to Leicester to do a degree. Why Leicester? Well, that's a good question. Because a friend went there. He went down there to check it out. And he came back and he said he was very impressed with the place. It had the longest bar, apparently, the longest student bar in England. So he was very impressed. And myself being not so interested in checking places out, I just thought, okay, I'll put it down and see. So I went there for an interview and then got offered the place and accepted it. That interview was a lot tougher as well. That was about 4 people interviewing me for the degree place. But I was glad I went there because there I met a chap called Peter Ray, who had been the head of the LCC course, London College of Communications as it is now, but London College of Printing as it was previously known as. And Peter, he was well connected in the design world in the sense of he could bring in interesting tutors, and we had visiting lecturers from the States, from Holland, from all over the place. So people like Dan Friedman, April Grayman, Ken Garland, and many others. And that was quite influential in terms of the students there. I think we all gained by his connection with these other designers who were commercially working as well as lecturing in some instances. So on the course, Peter asked what I wanted to do, and I said, I don't know. And he said, do information design, because that way you can do everything but better. I'm not really comprehending what he meant by that until much later I selected information design. So it's a small pathway of only 12 designers chose the pathway, looking at making the world somewhat better by design. And so fortunately I rose to the challenges that were at Leicester. I hand-rendered, this is quite a crazy thing to attempt, but I hand-rendered a millimeter grid for an identity project I did for an American removal company called Red Ball. So we did some really mad, ambitious projects. One being a mock-up of the NASA Space Center, of this launch of the rocket, the Apollo, to the moon. So that looked great on camera because basically we had it in black and white, and it just came over very well. But after my degree show, externally moderated by a chap called Henry Henrian and John McDonnell of Pentagram, I then moved down to London and started freelancing. But then, then the college asked me back to lecture on the first year of the degree course, which I was surprised by, as I'd only just left the course and was anxious to prove myself in London, in terms of actually doing some design work. However, I found the exercise enjoyable, the lecturing that is, and also picked up a day's teaching on the foundation course, also at Leicester. So I continued the part-time lecturing for a number of years until I got too busy in London with too much commercial work and had to give it up. So then I did a lot of work on identity projects and print design projects with Jordan Williams. Met a lot of interesting designers and photographers like Gert Dunbar, Keith Goddard, Wolfgang Weingart, Janine Waddell. Principally through a lot of Peter Ray's projects and contacts. And one of the projects actually saw me freelance with Henrien's new partnership with Chris Ludlow and Klaus Schmidt in a company called Henrien, Ludlow and Schmidt. And they were doing an audit on the London Underground signage system. So I went down there and actually took the photographs of a lot of stations in terms of the signs that would then be looked at and appraised how they worked or how they didn't work. And that turned out to be quite a long and lengthy contract for the Henriens company to be doing. I eventually turned up as well. I got a job there as projects director eventually. But I also remember one day getting a call early in the morning, about 6:30 a.m. and this was from Japan, So it was an agency representing Mitsubishi, Mitsubishi Motors, who wanted to speak to me about a design consultancy for them in Europe, basically. Which was a rather strange call at 6:30 a.m. So strange things can happen in design and catch you by surprise, because I didn't know that call was coming. So I also remember getting a fax from Japan which said, due to the poetical situation in the Middle East, we do not recommend you to visit there now. This was quite fun. So basically they'd misspelled political, obviously. They meant to say, due to the political situation, we don't recommend you go down to Israel. So misspellings happen, but I always thought that was quite a funny line, due to the poetical situation. So I worked in many design companies. And one I also acted as a chief guy to bring in business. I landed a large contract with TV2 Norway after reading about a decision in Norway to give the contract to run the station to an insurance company. I rang them up, as you do, and asked if they would like some help. 6 months later, we had £500,000 contract. So not everybody wants designers calling them up. So it's quite a tough task to develop design contracts with brand new clients. So one of my most visible projects was the changing of the KLM colours from a turquoise blue to a deeper sky blue. And that change meant it was easier and simpler to print in a single colour. And on the stationery range, because the turquoise colour sank into the white, didn't show very well. So that meant a global saving on their print bill. We're talking obviously lots of production and printing involved in advertising and promoting and organising an airline. So businesses do need designers to ask questions and to see opportunities for efficiency and effectiveness. And it can be very frustrating when a client doesn't listen to design advice. Such was my experience with advising Robert Maxwell, and who was the editor at the time of the Mirror, Daily Mirror. He was wanting a new sign for his Maxwell Corporate Communications. Very long piece of wording. And he wanted this design to have a picture of the world, the sphere in effect, and Maxwell Corporate Communications underneath it. But the sphere, he wanted it to be quite large. So I had suggested that he only have it about 50 centimeters, which is quite large as a three-dimensional thing, particularly when it's inside an office. This wasn't on the outside of the building, this was inside the office. But he said he thought it needed to be bigger, and so he got one that was 150 centimeters wide, which was huge. And this was in a space had to sit in a space above 4 secretaries that were outside his office. In his before he got into his office, there was this other office with these 4 secretaries and this whopping huge sign. So anyway, so designers often get asked to do things quickly. I was asked if I could have some ideas back to the BBC within 24 hours. And actually I said yes, although it was quite a challenge at the time because I was in the middle of quite a complex signing contract for working with BAA Heathrow Airport in terms of the signage system. and it was a long year, 2 year design project. Because there were so many people involved in the project in terms of building, construction, authorizations, and all sorts of things. So to get a 24-hour turnaround project was quite a relief. To get something in and out, I'm very much ideas based regarding what they wanted. So a designer is good to have a variety of challenges, and that was a classic example. Can I produce something in 24 hours? Yes, I can. But doing work for charities is also a good thing to do. Maybe not financially good, because basically they generally don't have much in terms of budgets. But it's good to know that you do something which hopefully will be positive for them, and will make a positive difference in the world. So my particular cover design for ActionAid was such a type project. I had a nice photograph of a girl from Nepal and very little else. So that was the only visual thing that they gave me. So out came my colour pastels, and I created the world with colour pastels. And also I got a colour photocopy of a map of the world and put that physically together, and that turned out quite well, I thought, in terms of an image that had some sort of significance, and they liked it, and hopefully it did well for them. So being a designer also led me to being a lecturer, a teacher of design, and that led me to being a teacher at Leicester, lecturer at Leicester, at Ravensbourne University, Brunel University, and at City Lit. And this is where you may be interested to come and perhaps see me. So City Lit obviously is a good resource educationally. It has a good ethical stance in terms of that it wants to help people to develop themselves, to help yourself, and certainly in design, I think that's a really important thing, that we as designers have a responsibility to be helping this world become a better world, and not to accept status quo, as it were, but to stretch out our ideas and our minds to engage with people and to really make a difference. And I believe that very passionately. Anyway, hope you found that interesting. That's why I design. Bye for now.